asked Roger Crockett, the Vice President and Global Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Western Digital, to join us and discuss diversity a bit from a global perspective. And Roger, I think you've been around with diversity and inclusion for many years, almost 20 years, I think, right? Or
you're dating me.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We're always, we're going backwards here in Israel, so it's okay. But in any case, one of the things that I really liked is the clear definition that you made between what is diversity, what is inclusion. We use those two words, but I don't think that necessarily we have the distinction of what is what. So maybe we could start with that.
Absolutely. First, connect. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Maybe we should reinforce with that. Okay. Eventually, we always go back to handheld mic.
How about now?
Much better. Good.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, toda.
Oh, thank you. You're picking up on your Hebrew.
Yes.
Very well.
and Shalom, Tel Aviv.
Wow. This is you're fluent, Roger.
Far from it. This is my first visit to Tel Aviv. Come all the way from the United States, from California, from Silicon Valley, where Western Digital is located, headquartered, and what a beautiful city. I almost got distracted on the way over here by the beautiful beach. Must be dedicated to the diversity and inclusion. But the diversity, we often, to answer your question, you hear the phrase that diversity is about diversity of thought, right? That's the emphasis, diversity of thought. And of course, thought is very important, those different perspectives. But I think that we have to consider, how do we get to that thought? What shapes each of us as individuals, our own perspective, our own thought, and that's who we are. So diversity is really about the who. It's about being a black man, an African American, and being shaped by that lens that I bring to the lens I bring to the world. My unique experiences, whether you are a Jewish man or woman, whether you are a person of a different sexual orientation or religion, whatever it is, those things are what shapes our view and gives us the perspectives that are so valuable in the workplace. So diversity is really about the who, the individuals that shape those perspectives.
It's actually working.
Okay now?
Thank you.
And just let me know if you can't hear me. We'll bring them back up. But diversity is nothing, Momo, unless we can
Israeli innovation,
Yes.
You do a headset, but then you use a handheld mic. It's reverse engineering. Go ahead, sorry.
Diversity is really nothing without how we treat each other as individuals. And so inclusion, that's what really inclusion is all about. Inclusion is really critical to making a difference in the workplace. You can have all the diversity in the world, different people, different religions, and all the different backgrounds, but unless we treat each other with respect, unless our points of view, our perspectives are welcomed, our contributions are encouraged and valued, unless there's that treatment in the workplace, and that's the inclusion, that's really the magic. Then otherwise...
And we'll discuss it later. By the way, there's a session where also that Noah from the Israeli Diversity Forum will moderate, where we're adding belonging as well. But I want to take you, one of the things that intrigued me, and I don't think it's that common in Israel, definitely, or I think mostly, not, maybe with the high-tech a bit more, but not necessarily with traditional companies, traditional industries, is the unbiased workshops that you do. And you said something that everything is basically biased in a way. we need to kind of acknowledge that.
Well, I don't know if you all are familiar with this, but the movement in the U.S. and I think in other places around the world is to do training in what's called unconscious bias. So we all have bias, but there's this movement around unconscious bias, and really what that's about, the science behind that is, how many of you have ever been driving down the road down the freeway, and you sort of just zone out, and you wake up almost, you come back to it like a mile or two down the road, and you ask yourself, how did I get from point A to point B? Oh my God, I wasn't really paying attention, but yet you navigated. That's our consciousness behind the scenes, navigating roadway that we've been on many times, or similar roadway that we've been on many times. And so that's this thing called unconscious bias. But I think what we have to recognize as we try to work well together in the workplace is that we all have biases. Let's not worry about our unconscious bias, but the fact that we all carry biases toward other people, toward other things, and then let's figure out, how do we manage, first acknowledge the bias, and then how do we manage that so that we can interact differently and better.
And once we acknowledge it, we definitely, I think it will add something up. But there's also, we're speaking about innovation. We've discussed it the previous conversation as well. We've been working, I think, on diversity and inclusion, at least in Israel, for at least, I think, formally, something like 15, 17 years now, 18 years. Do we see any sort of what we might call innovation in diversity and inclusion anywhere? Something that you feel that is sort of innovative?
Yeah, I think, the diversity inclusion movement and practice has been around for years, and you have to scratch your head and wonder, why haven't we made more progress? And I think the reason, Momo, that we haven't made more forward momentum is that we haven't been good yet, successful at connecting diversity and inclusion to business impact.
Okay.
Now, we talk about the business case. The business case is that there's a shortage of workers, of talented workers here in Tel Aviv, here in Israel, in the US. How do we get more talented workers? And we know that we have to go to new markets, new demographics to get those talented workers. That's the business case. But what's the business impact? How do we make diversity and inclusion relevant to what individuals at the workplace do every single day? So let me give you an example. Years ago in the US, a company named Motorola. Anybody familiar with Motorola?
Yeah, they've been interactive in Israel, I think.
Yeah, and so years ago they were the #1 provider of cell phones and other sorts of wireless technology.
Sure remember that.
And during the 1990s, they were trying to win they were trying to wire Atlanta, the site of the Summer Olympics in the 1996 Olympics. And they came to Atlanta, and they didn't have an inclusive workforce that they brought to bear to make the sale. And Atlanta sent them back home, said, how dare you not have proper representation of women, proper representation of people of color. In a city like Atlanta, it's a very, very diverse city. And so Motorola then almost lost the Olympic contract by not being diverse and inclusive. They were given a second chance. They came back.
It's a very powerful
we have to
story.
Understand that diversity is relevant to winning more business. And a lot of that is driven by the inclusive nature in which we interact with one another and recognize each other's their perspectives, so that we can, if they had asked the right people, wouldn't Motorola have shown up better to that particular opportunity?
That's a very powerful story, and it gives a business sort of sense. I mean, you obviously you need to interact with whom you work with, and it's always we can conclude with the Israeli case, because you have now, again, a fresh impression, maybe from the outside. It's a very traditional thing in Israel. Everybody who comes from abroad, we ask him, so what do you think about what we do here? So I'll ask you that as well. But maybe I'll also ask Ronit Karpol from Western Digital Israel to join us.
Big hand to Ronit.
So in front of Ronit, you can say everything we like. So were you actually, I mean, what was your take of the work around here on diversity compared to the States? Any insights? Again, not necessarily, I'm not looking for better or not, I'm looking for insights that might be, help us to sort of, you know, boost our efforts.
One of the things that I'm very happy to report is that there are some significant efforts occurring here in Israel, and I'm thrilled that Western Digital is a part of them. Someone mentioned Startup Nation. Someone may have also mentioned Comatech. Are you familiar with Comatech? It's a nonprofit that, again, is focusing on giving opportunities for the ultra-Orthodox here in Tel Aviv. And I think that there is an sort of an entrepreneurial spirit. There is this willingness for business, NGOs, nonprofits, government to work together to solve a problem and thereby get better at serving the community. Not just the few, Professor, but the many.
Yeah, nice.
So that's a lesson that I'm taking back home to.
That's excellent, and it echoes, I think, what Mickey has sort of said at starting. Ronit, one of the things that really, I think, impressed us, and obviously the committee that went through the nominations this year, is that sort of traffic light, internal traffic light that you've developed with a green, yellow and red in terms of, in a way, it's for navigation, I would say, in a multicultural kind of environment. So could you enlighten us on the traffic light and
of course.
So what it is?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Momo, and thank you, Roger. So just as a story, while we were starting our journey into diversity and inclusion, hiring the ultra-Orthodox ladies into our company, into our workforce, we felt that we checked the box next to diversity part. But the inclusion part was even more challenging from our eyes, because integrated like ultra-Orthodox community into our high-tech industry, workforce, it's not easy. And together with Comatech, we're great partners, we decided to navigate our way together and create kind of a ways, or you can call it a traffic light, that will mention all the best practices and day-to-day activities to understand better how we need to react and how we need to act in each and every, milestone in the way. It was very new to us and to the Orthodox lady as well. So together, mutually, we went to this journey. And I think for now, like 1.5 years after, we can definitely define it as a success story.
And so red, yellow, green. So give us an example. Okay.
For just like many examples, but very, even one specific example I can share with you. Orthodox women cannot sit together in the same room with men, right? This is part of the culture, this is part of the Torah. So we thought whether we would like to embrace that or not. And we decided we'd definitely go for this. It's not a huge hassle, and we can definitely, embrace that.
Okay.
And we decided that we will give them the degrees of freedom to decide whether they want to sit together in the same room or not. And we were like hesitating what will be the reactions from our employee side. And we're happy to know that they were like, okay, what is the big deal around it? So if they want to sit together, go ahead, it's fine with us. So we were very happy, and we put it on the green side. And we have some stuff that we put on the, red light.
Yeah. That no way we can allow that. You need to somehow conform to the rules, basically.
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, this action was mutual from both sides, from their side, together with the rabbis, with Comatech. we decided what is right for us and what is not, and we created kind of, contract, informal contract to mitigate the gap or to bridge it, and I think it's going well. I need to just make a disclaimer. Like every other week, we have a new subject on our table, on our plate. It's never ending, but it's definitely something that we meet and discuss, and
fantastic.
It's great work together.
And as you've hinted, and we'll discuss it again later on, it's not an easy road to take. So thank you very much, both, for joining us here this morning.
You're very welcome.
And Roger, you're taking something back with you. You've brought us something here. So I think we kind of settled the bill in a way. So
excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.